Here we go. This is Mr. Burns, and I'm going to go over subtracting fractions. But before I do that, I wanted to point out that struggling with fractions is very common in the middle school, and some of the reasons that I see for it we have in front of us. One is just weakness with math facts. In order to do adding and subtracting fractions well, you have to be excellent with your multiplication and division facts. Now for me, most of the times I see that a kid who really understands multiplication and division facts, they can do about 30 or more than 30 in a minute. Kids who have weaknesses are doing anywhere from 5 to 20 facts per minute. And division is even tougher than multiplication. Alright, another thing is memory issues. There are different rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. And kids mix these up all the time. Now the rules aren't that complicated, but it's still tough for many kids to keep those rules straight. For example, in dividing fractions, you have to change that to a multiplication problem and flip the divisor fraction or the second fraction. We're doing subtraction this morning, so before we can subtract fractions, we have to have a common denominator, and that means, again, you have to be able to multiply very well. If you can't find a least common multiple, it's tough, very tough. And then the last step after you have done the calculations with your fraction is being able to simplify, and that's where division comes in. You have to be able to find a common factor that you can take out of many of the fractions. The numerator and the denominator could both be divided by 2 or 5, and you have to recognize that rather quickly. It can't take seconds after seconds after seconds. So these are four main areas where you can make mistakes with doing your fraction problems. Alright, we are going to do a sample fraction problem now, so I'm going to pause my video and jump to the next screen. Okay, here we go. This fraction says 4/5 minus 1/2. If you look here at the bottom, those denominators, they're not the same. I need the same denominator, so I'm going to start by rewriting my problem. Now here is where my knowledge of multiplication needs to come in. I need to realize that the first number that both 5 and 2 will multiply into is 10. So 10 is going to be my new bottom number. Let me show you how I did that with the 5. I multiplied it by 2. This one I multiplied by 5. A lot of kids will do this step here. They'll get a new common denominator by multiplying, but then they'll forget that I also need to change the numerators. So I need to multiply this 4 by 2 to get 8. There's my new top number. And in this one I need to multiply by 5. So 1 times 5 is 5, and now I'm ready to add, or subtract. 8 minus 5, almost made a big mistake there. 8 minus 5 is 3, and I'm over 10, and guess what? 3 will go into 3, but it doesn't go into 10. 2 will go into 10, but it does not go into 3, so I do not need to simplify this fraction. Alright? Review that if you need to, otherwise we're going to move on to a second problem. Here is my second fraction problem. It says 4/6 minus 1/2. Again, we're going to start by looking at those denominators. I do not have a common denominator, so I need to find a common denominator. I'm going to leave my first fraction alone, because 2 will go into 6. So 6 is going to be my common denominator. Now, how do I change that 2 into a 6? Well, I do that by multiplying. Again, a lot of students will do this step, but they'll also forget that I need to change my numerator too. If I change my denominator, I also need to change my numerator. 1 times 3 is 3. Alright. Now we are a step away. 4 minus 3 is 1. I do nothing with my bottom fraction. This is in lowest terms. There's no simplifying that I need to do, so I am finished. Watch this video again as many times as it takes for you to start understanding that process of subtracting and also the special rules that we have with subtracting fractions.